This conference will now be recorded.
Scripts is you have to practice them. So practice isn't the thing you do once you're good. It's the thing you do that makes you, that makes you good. So I think one of the things is it's never too early to kind of start practicing scripts. And Frank and Tom will kind of walk us through how they've kind of adapted or adopted scripts. But I definitely say it's never too early or never too late to kind of look through it. I would like you guys and highly encourage you guys to really consider having some script partners. So in my opinion, you should have 3 people. One should be the real estate agent, one should be the consumer, and one should be the observer. And you can do it on the phone. You can do it face-to-face. There is enough agents in our coaching program alone to grab a couple other people before or after a meeting, or pick a time 2-3 times a week and get on the phone. There's also tons of Facebook groups. If you literally Google inside Facebook role play or script practice partners, there's tons of Facebook groups that offer that. Non-Keller Williams agents, they're literally outside of KW or inside KW. So I think if you're seeing that you're not converting leads, if you see you're going to appointments and they're not listing with you or signing a buyer agency agreement, if you see that maybe some of your negotiations are going south, honestly, the first spot I would recommend is making sure you're comfortable with your scripts. Make sure that you know what the objection handlers should be, because that's usually where the gap starts. And so that's kind of what I have to say on that topic. And the rest, I'll leave it up to Tom and Frank to kind of get us going. So I recorded this, so if anybody wants to review this later, but Frank, I'm going to start with you. Kind of give me a little background on your real estate experience if somebody on this call doesn't know who you are. And Tom, give me you can go second and give me a big breakdown of your real estate career too.
Okay. Got in the business in '83. The first probably 2/3 of my career was more institutional, represented builders, developers, and things of that nature. And then as you start building your client base, it's gone to past clients.
Okay.
And it's been a good run for me. Just because of that, scripts were a little later in the process. So I'll caveat that some of the things I'm telling you now that I'm doing are not things that I've been doing for a tremendously long period of time.
But I think that is good to bring up, because I don't think it's never too late to get started, right? I mean, with a builder, you possibly didn't need a script, but as you went into resale and working with past clients, you did start to see the need for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Tom, what about you? How long have you been in real estate? Give us a little background on you.
So I've been with Keller Williams for 3 years, and Keller is the only brokerage I've ever been at, and the only brokerage I'll ever be at. Have a long history of new long history of new construction, kind of like Frank, but I didn't work as a representative for a builder. I actually worked for the builders and then consulted for builders and developers, building sales teams. So we used scripts, but it was a very different type of scripts, and it was tailored specifically one-sided for whatever builder we worked with. But like Frank, scripts are somewhat in my realm now.
Okay. That's good. I'm glad. So before we kind of dive into specific scripts, like we always talk about lead generation, and where do you, so Tom, I'll ask you the question and then we'll kind of pivot back again to Frank. Where do you get your leads from now? Like, what are your main lead sources? And then Frank, what are your lead sources after Tom answers?
So my focus this year is looking at my business. My sphere and past clients have been really good to me and consistently feed me leads. So I'll continue to work that until that dries up completely, which hopefully will never be. FSBOs and expireds has always kind of been a big part of my business. They are out raising their hands, telling us that they are looking for business. So I feel like that's easy. And then circle prospecting, with the volume that this office has of either just sold, just listed, just closed, I see that as another little bit of low-hanging fruit. Okay.
Yeah. And Frank, you have you kind of a focus on different things. What do you focus on?
Past clients are obviously the number one hit. They're probably I don't know, 65, 70% of the business. I've been good at open houses and networking.
Yeah.
Have not done a farm to the extent that I should, but that's one of the things I've added to the mix, the open houses and farms, especially with the new thing that Command has out. I think that's going to give the agents in this company a leverage position over everybody else because we can provide information that nobody else can provide it in real time. I think that's a major thing for us.
Yeah, I think that's a huge shift, and I think that's going to give, like you said, a good opportunity that someone else doesn't offer. So what I would say is one of the questions I was thinking about with kind of the topic of scripts, like when your lead generation, how do you incorporate scripts? Frank, even with you, like open houses, networking, and past clients, do you feel like you use a script to talk to those three groups of people, or do you feel like it's organic? Like what is your take when you're talking about your group of people and how it relates to scripts?
It's not as scripted probably as it should be. One of the things that I've noticed about calling past clients, especially if you've done multiple deals with them, there's kind of a merger from where they go from being purely a client to more somebody that on a personal level. And so from the standpoint of hitting numbers, that makes it a little difficult because the length of time on the phone per contact tends to be longer than what most of the lead generation experts say that we should do. Gotcha.
And what about, Tom, for you, how naturally some of your stuff now is scripted, FISBOs, expireds, even circle prospecting, but do you think like your sphere past clients, do you use scripts with that group of people or you do not?
I do, and I would say that I've internalized it a lot more, so it's a little bit easier. But the scripts are still there because my time's valuable, and I don't want to get off on a long tangent. So when I'm making my lead generation calls to my sphere, it's with the very specific purpose of either seeing where they are in the process, or if they've got a referral for me. So I need to get on the phone, get the referral, and kind of get off with, but still maintain that personal relationship. So I use the script more to keep myself on track.
Okay. And then, I that's I think the power of scripts is that it still can keep you human, but it doesn't suck all your time away. I remember one of my first conversations with my past client was like a 30-minute conversation. I'm like, oh my gosh, I appreciate them, and yet I don't have 30 minutes to dedicate to one person when you're trying to make 10 connections a day, right? So did you start always with both of you guys with past clients in the sphere? Do you feel like they know that you're using a script? Do they feel like, he's reading off a piece of paper? Do you get any vibe that they know that you're using a script? Maybe Tom, you can answer.
I would say no, because I think that when you practice them over and over and over and over, they become so normal and they become part of your language. I will say my mindset initially when I first got into it, it was like scripts. I don't want to sound canned. That's not me. I've been doing this for a long time. I don't need this. And once I started really following the scripts and began to internalize it, I noticed a dramatic change in how my conversations were going. And I felt like it was just smooth. So, to answer your question, no, I don't think anybody really picks up on it because I've adopted it a little bit for my own language. Once I've I've gone through bold 3 times, and I'm probably going to go through a 4th, but it's one that's it's kind of become second nature.
So you said change conversation and change the conversation. That's what I wrote down. What do you mean by that? Like, I don't obviously, what does that? Yeah, I don't expand on that. What has changed conversation from when you weren't using scripts to now that you are?
So when I maybe it was a little bit of my own personal mindset, but I felt like I was fumbling a little bit. I was grasping, and I felt like I was very transactional, and I was looking for business, and I don't want it to necessarily feel like I'm looking for business, even though that's my intent. And I think that's just me. So once I followed the script, there are embedded commands in there. There's a natural flow to the conversation that kept everything kind of neat and tidy so that I didn't go down these different rabbit holes or anything like that. So the conversation became more fluid and kept me on point again for what I was calling them for.
Gotcha. And Frank, do you have anything to add? Like, do you think scripts change the way that you communicate with your past clients? Do you think it's just a different approach that is either helpful for you to save time, or what's your take on that?
Um, I think the concepts of scripts is very good. I'm probably going to get in trouble now, but I don't know that you need to use every one of them verbatim. I think that the more you internalize them, the better.
Right.
And the other thing, though, and I think Tom is saying this, is that if you come from contribution so that you're not looking at them as a dollar sign, then they don't think of it as a script, because your tonality and the way that you're coming through in the conversation is one that's supportive and helpful, not like you typically get with the dialing America things out there that the first 3 minutes you're talking to a computer.
Well, and it's interesting. Both of you are saying the same thing, but I think sometimes it's the opposite mindset. Is sometimes I hear limiting beliefs of, scripts sound robotic, scripts sound so harsh, scripts sound so salesman-y, they sound too pushy, they're too direct. You both are articulating that it creates a more natural conversation, and that it creates a platform for you to come from contribution. Why do you think there's the limiting belief or the mindset of it's robotic, it's transactional, and you guys are saying the opposite? I think that's interesting, that kind of the myth behind the actuality is different. What do you think the difference of why there may be a concept or a thought process of transactional, robotic, and it's forceful, versus you actually are saying the opposite? Did you have to evolve in that too? Maybe that's a two-part question. Like, why is that mindset set up that way? And then what is the transition that you had to convert to the way you think now?
I would go ahead.
Oh, yeah, Frank, go ahead.
Go ahead, Frank. Sorry.
Yes, sir. I think mindset obviously is important, but I think your value and the way that you approach your business is extremely important. Most people evaluate somebody who's calling on a script based on what they're used to, which is the guy that calls at 6 o'clock in the afternoon when you're sitting down to dinner, that doesn't listen to anything you say, but is trying to hammer something home to you. KW and the people in this office especially are all about helping their clients and coming from contribution. And I think that when you do that and you're listening to people, it doesn't feel like a script, because the way I look at scripts is that I want to know the script so that I hit the key points that I should hit, that I do it in a time effective manner. And the other thing that doesn't come natural to most of us is the tie downs and the upswings and the downswings of the language of sales. And I think those things are very, very key, and that's something that you get out of the scripts. But to answer your question more specifically, I think most of the people that the public deals with that use scripts are very poorly trained and do not come from contribution.
Yeah, I think it's crappy scripts, and I agree. They literally are reading off a piece of paper, so you're like, wow, you sound like an infomercial, right? So, do you have a different take, or what's your add to that conversation?
Very similar. I was going to say a lot of us that come into real estate come from a variety of backgrounds, and maybe we weren't really used to following a script, so it's uncomfortable. So when we read it, we associate it with the negative script readers, like the robocalls, et cetera. But those have come from sales backgrounds, typically have had some degree of a script that they had to use from wherever their past lives were. So, I think, like Frank said, I think you tend to associate it with a negative, and in reality, it's the right thing to say at the right time and to keep you on track.
Gotcha. So it sounds like what I heard you say is that you really have to find the right scripts, though, right? Like you Google, even in Ignite, there's 75 scripts that you have options to. You Google anything that different coaching programs offer. Bold offers coaching scripts. How many scripts do you really use? And then why did you choose those? Tom, how many would you say you use in a typical business? Is it 2? Is it 20? I mean, I didn't ask that. I didn't kind of prep you for that question. I want to hear kind of what your gut instinct is. How many do you think you use?
I don't think there's, one script. If you go through it, it's like the pieces that you take, whether you get it from Ignite or from Bold. It's one script, but it's got multiple layers. It's got objection handlers. It's got all of that in there. So if you were to break those out, it'd probably be over 20. But to say that on a call like this, people are gonna be like, "Whoa, I can't internalize 20 scripts." But it's really just picking the one that you like. Like I have one that I use for FSBOs that works really well. I have one that works for expires that works really well, and there are some tie downs that are in there that I like really well, and those are the ones that I tend to migrate towards. So
Okay.
I have probably a handful of primary scripts that I use, but if you were to peel back the layers of the onion, you'd see there's a lot of language of sales and scripts that are kind of continue those conversations depending on where we go. My office is a good example. Not this office, the office that I have at home. I have my scripts taped to my wall, and it's probably 10 pages from my Bold book, so that when I'm going through and I'm handling objections, I tend to pace when I'm on the phone. So I'll walk around and when somebody gives me the right objection, I line myself up right to where that script is and go through that, so that it just keeps me so that I don't get lost.
Well, and I want to kind of piggyback, and then I'll have Frank answer the same question. I find that, yeah, you may use 10 different scripts or 20 different scripts, but you're only using small chunks. You're actually not using the whole script. I tend to cross-pollinate. So, like, I'll use a little bit from an expired script, and I'll use a little bit from a FSBO script, and then I'll pull something random from Ignite. Because once you've got a few scripts under your belt, you see they're actually not connected technically with a specific topic. They're more just a conversation bridge gap. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think that's exactly the similarities, like FSBOs and expires. The scripts are so similar to one another that you begin to internalize it, and you'll do exactly what you said. The cross pollination is easy.
Yeah. Frank, do you kind of have an idea of how many scripts that you would say you kind of have, you've got internalized that you use on a daily, weekly, monthly basis kind of in your business? Could you kind of pick out a number, you think?
Yes, as far as the ones that I've set aside, I have a hard time sometimes getting in here and getting started on it. And Drew knows this well. I'm the squirrel hunter. Something bright and shiny runs by me, then I'm off in that direction. So I took one of the old Bold books and went through the couple of times that I've been through Bold. I think it's 3 or 4 now, and the Ignite classes, and put just one book together that's tabbed for buyers, listings, for sale by owners, expireds, vendors, and things of that nature, and went through all those scripts. And there's probably about 12 in that book, plus objection handlers and other tie downs. And so that way I can focus on just doing that one thing. I can come in here, pick up the book, open it to, say, past clients, or reconnect with past clients and just start calling. But like Tom was saying, you're picking and choosing the points out of multiple scripts that work for you. So it's not like you have to learn 100 of these things.
Yeah, I think that's what I've experienced myself, and I think you guys are hitting the nail on the head. I think the word scripts gets overwhelming, and then you see all these options on the internet or in a class. If you started with 3 and really knew those really, really well, I think they would serve your business well. And then you get your business up and going, and maybe add 3 more as you get some more production. You got 6 solid kind of good core foundation scripts. So we pick our scripts. We got kind of a narrow focus on how many scripts. What are some tips or some tricks to like get it to stick in your head? How do you get it from the page to your mouth to your memory, to get it come out at the right time? Because I think memorization is tricky. I feel like sometimes as you get older, it's not like it's arithmetic in elementary school anymore. So Tom, what is your tips and tricks on like memorizing some of your favorite scripts, or what are some tactics that you've used to kind of get it to stick?
Chunk it down. I think chunk it down and practice daily. So like when you're in Bold, you have an accountability partner that you call every single day. And if you it's easy enough to take that practice and put it into your business, because it's 30 minutes a day. And practice every day, but don't practice all 20 scripts or anything like that. Find one that you're focused on this week and just practice that one and practice it over and over and over. If you know, I took some of the lessons from, like, when I went through Bold, my listing presentation was not at all what it should be. So what we did with the Bold listing presentation, it was a 3-day kind of process. So, you know, day one, or you had to go through and learn this much. Day two, you went through and learned this much. And I think that practice would apply to this as well, as just break it down into smaller pieces until you can kind of internalize it. But take every opportunity to practice, whether it's with another KW agent. Sometimes if I couldn't get anybody, I would talk to my wife, and I didn't really care if she was listening or not, because it was just me being able to verbalize it.
Yeah. Frank, I mean, you're a great facilitator, instructor, teacher for different topics. What would you say your advice is for memorizing scripts, or how have you done that? How have you kind of internalized?
Whenever possible, I pulled from some of the KW videos and things. Everybody that's been to Bold obviously has the CD that's got the stuff on there that Diane has done. And
Yeah.
I've got one of those that's just stuck in the CD player at home. And if I'm just walking around working or doing something in my home office, I'll plug that thing into the TV and let it go in the background. Some of them you don't have in that polished format, so I'll read them into an MP3 file or something like that, download it to the iPod that I keep in the car, and just play it while you're going around, because subconsciously or subliminally, you pick this stuff up when you're not even paying attention to it. And that saves you the time, and it also allows you to get little 10 or 15 minute increments of time to use in the methods, where if you have to schedule it all the time, sometimes your schedule goes sideways and you don't get the opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's important to make sure. Hopefully everybody heard that. I personally think recording it, or hearing a recording, is huge, because it helps you with tonality, the upswings, the downswings that both of you mentioned in before. So your voice goes up or goes down. Tie downs are physical words that you're using to connect, a solution to the problem that you're trying to overcome. I literally have everybody pretty much has a free voice memo app on their phone. If not, you can download one for free. I would say read the script into your phone and listen to that. I remember many a times, I know Melvin's not on this call, but he would have earbuds in, walking around the office, and he would literally be listening to the scripts over and over again in his head. And I think what Frank, you said is important. It's like, it's osmosis. It just sticks in your brain, and you'll be at a listing presentation, or you'll be on a phone call with the FSBO, and the script just falls out of your mouth, and you're like, man, I sound good. It's because I think that it literally starts to absorb into your conscience, right? So, Tom, do you record it? Do you say you actually have it written, like it's on the wall with it, like written on tape? Do you record yourself at all? Do you reflect back on any conversations or calls you have?
So yes and no. I've actually used Google Voice. So, like, I have a Google Voice number, and I haven't done it recently, but I've actually called my own number and just go through the whole script, and that way it's recorded and I can go back and listen to it and kind of hear it. So I'll tend to do that if I don't have anybody else around to be able to use to see what I've got, but it has been a while.
Well, I think with the script practice and scripts in general, if you don't have a script partner, you can record yourself and then listen to yourself. I think one of the biggest things, I'm like, oh, I hate my way my voice sounds. Well, you know what? Everyone else hears my voice the way it sounds. So you can't change that. So one other thing is, what do you think is one thing that you've learned about using scripts that a newer agent should know? Like, what do you think, again, what's one thing? Frank, you can kind of go first. So you've been in the business since '83. If they're, we have agents that are 2 weeks into the business, and you had to give them a piece of advice about scripts, what would it be?
I've fought scripts for a long, long time. It's interesting. I think it was 2010 or so was when I really started getting to the point of embracing them, because I took an EMS class where you know go through the medical procedures and things of that nature. And
Yeah.
I noticed that in every single one of the scenarios that you had to work, they actually had a script. Now they call it algorithms, but it's effectively the same thing. And I was thinking to myself that if doctors and people that are in the position of trying to save somebody and they want the best result every single time, then having something that tells you what to do and how to do it and the right order to do it must have some strong validity. And so that's when I started using the scripts to a greater degree. And so I would tell them not to do what I did, which is have a bad attitude about them and put off using them. The sooner you start using them, the better it's going to be.
Yeah, I think that buy-in is challenging because we're entrepreneurs. We're getting into real estate because this is our business and this is what we want to do. And scripts sometimes impose, this is telling you what to do. Specifically, it's telling you what to say. And there's a little bit of ego attached to that. Did you feel like, why do you think you fought it? What was that? What was your kind of excuse or limiting thought process why you fought it at the beginning?
Well, and I guess the one thing that I have to say is that this industry today is nowhere near like it was in the mid 80s. There was almost no training. And the people that were teaching scripts, and Mike Ferry was about the first guy to ever promote anything like this, they were hardcore salespeople. And it did not come from contribution. And it was not actually adopted, I think, for the real estate industry. It was adopted for the hardcore, you know, get them on the phone and slam them type
Gotcha.
process. And a whole lot, what we don't understand is that a whole lot of how people get motivated to do something is in the language of sales and how you enunciate things and whether you're upswing or downswing and things like that. And it's almost impossible, I think, for the average person to naturally know how to do that without studying the scripts and without looking at the language of sales. You know, and that's
not. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a great point.
If you ask the question, isn't it time that we go ahead and make a decision now? Is that different than, do you really want to make a decision now? You know, and you're in the upswing and you sound like you're not sure. There's no way in the world that your client's going to think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and I think interesting enough, I think that was another good point that people I want to kind of isolate is it's actually not the words that you're saying that sounds, you know, that's causing the challenge. It's the tonality of it. And we don't know how we sound, or we don't even know, we just say things and we're like, oh, you know, how's your day going? And you don't know, there's no tonality in that. Well, do you care about really how my day's going, right? So, and I think the evolution of the scripts has changed. I think you're right. The 80s and 90s, it was hardcore, beat them over the head, make them buy the product. The consumer has smartened up going, yeah, we're going to make our own decision if we're going to buy the product. So Tom, what about you? Maybe one thing that you think that you would say to a newer agent that about, you know, using and learning scripts, and even the kind of pitching the second question, and what's one mistake maybe you think new agents tend to use when they're working on scripts at the beginning? So one good thing and one maybe thing that you think is a mistake.
So I think the one thing, and that maybe they interlace a little bit, but the one thing is to not be afraid to practice it, because if you're not practicing the scripts ahead of time, I could hand you the script and say, sit down, let's make some FSBO calls, and your success rate might be better than if you had done it without the script. But if you haven't internalized it even a little bit, it's going to sound very robotic and very scripted, and you will fumble through your words. So the practice is where the magic happens with regards to scripts. And then I think that the one mistake, maybe it layers in a little bit with that, is you've got to want it, right? I mean, you could hand somebody a manual on brain surgery, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you want to actually perform the brain surgery. They might want to be the doctor, but if they're not bought into actually doing the work behind it, they're not going to get there. So as it pertains to us and scripts, if you really want to take your business to the next level, this has got to be something that's got to be in your business and be a big part of it, not just kind of a let me sit down with my bold book or my Ignite book and make some phone calls, right?
Yeah, No, I think that's huge because we're the ALC is reading a book that's called Seven Habits. I'm reading the book cover here. The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, and it talks about habits. And I think script practice is a habit. And in that book, it talks about, you need to know how to do it, and you need to know what to apply it to, but you have to have the desire to want to do it, or this habit's never really going to be created, right? So you may go, I have a great FSBO script, I've practiced the FSBO script, so now I know what to do and how to do it, but you don't have the desire to actually apply it. It's all kind of in vain. I think you have to buy into the desire that you want to be efficient with your time, you want to come from contribution, like Frank and you have said. And if you don't have that desire, then of course you're just going to kind of quote make an excuse that scripts are awful, scripts kind of are robotic. So that's kind of what I took from what you just said. Anything else on I'm going to ask you just some basic real estate questions. Anything you kind of some final end cap on scripts in general? Anything, any ahas that you think that anybody needs to know about scripts? Frank, do you have any kind of last points on scripts?
Not other than, and Tom has said this quite well, you need to practice them, you need to internalize them, because once you feel like they're natural and they're you, then that's the way it's going to come across to your clients. And that doesn't get any easier with time. So the more you put it off, the more business you're losing, the less professional you are, and you still got to go through that same learning curve. So, as and Dennis Waitley says, eat the frog early.
Yeah,
you take one of the most difficult thing that you've got to do, and you hit it up front, and then it's behind you. And you also get a sense of accomplishment for that day, and I think it makes the rest of the day go well.
Yeah, I agree. Tom, what about you? Any last thoughts on the topic of scripts before we ask a couple questions about general?
I think for scripts, it's out there already, but you either practice on your clients or you practice on somebody else. And I mean, the choice is yours in your business. I think that, we all want to kind of do well. So practice on somebody else, not your clients.
Yeah, I agree. I guess from a perspective of coaching, I'll put an end cap on it as well, is real estate gives us an opportunity to create abundance in our family, a very healthy income, just as much, honestly, as doctors and lawyers make in some capacities in some professions. And scripts is a tool. It's a resource that is created to create more income, but also to show how professional you are. You don't come to a listing appointment or a buyer consultation with a script. Again, this is going to be blunt. Do you really deserve the full commission? Because you're not really giving them the full professional service. Because if you don't use a script, you're winging it. You're just kind of saying, well, this buyer's going to get this today, and this buyer's going to get a different conversation tomorrow. There's got to be some consistency. Being professional is you're consistently professional, in my opinion. So they get a little interesting pushback, I'm sure, on that. But so let's just kind of, I had two questions for you, and we'll hop off the call. I'll start with Tom. I ask these two questions, and then Frank, you can kind of end the call with us. You've been in real estate for a while. What do you think has been the easiest part about real estate for you? And then what do you think has been the most challenging that you've had to overcome since you've been a realtor?
I think the easiest thing, when I'm right, when my mind's right, and when I'm focused on it, I get it done. I think that we've been given all the tools and resources here at Keller Williams to know exactly the roadmap. If you follow the MREA, it's pretty clear exactly the path that you need to take. It's just the execution part of it is kind of on me, right? So, that's the downside, is my consistency is I can always tell when my business is going to be off or is already off. I can look back and say, yep, I know exactly what it was. I took my foot off the gas during that period there, and I took it off again there. And, at least at this point in my business, I can now identify it and take steps to make sure that I don't continue to do that and actually just build off of it.
Okay. And Frank, what about you? What do you think has been the easiest part of real estate for you through your journey? And what do you think has been the most challenging for you?
It's kind of funny. I think that working with the clients and solving the problems of the things that I enjoyed the most and have actually been easiest. I can't remember who said it, but one of the guys was talking about, how difficult it was to go out and play professional sports. And the guy says, no, man, when we're out there on a Sunday afternoon playing, that's the game. The work is all the practice that you get up to. So
That's so true.
my biggest challenge, I think, is to try to stay focused on the 20% and not migrate into activities that are not as effective. And then the other thing that tends to work for all of us, and I know that Tom feels this way because he's made the reference a couple of times, is that since mindset is so important, if you come up with some kind of discipline the first thing every morning that you use to get yourself in a good mindset, visualization, affirmation. I got a couple of videos that I like to play, or a couple of MP3s that I play that tend to get you in a good mindset. I think that helps quite a bit to get through the day, because you can beat up yourself and the business can beat you up, and you really don't need to go in that direction. You need to be positive about it and deal with what you have in front of you and let the other stuff, take its course and handle it when it's needed.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So, well, does anybody have any questions? I have everybody pretty much open. We got people, and you could, if you, for some reason, there's 3 or 4 of you, I think, on a web. If you want to chat your answer or question on the bottom, is there anything specific that you want to ask these both great successful agents about scripts or about their business? Is there any questions that you think that would kind of give you some good insight into scripts? Anybody have a question?
I don't really have a, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello? Okay. I don't really have a question, but some of us went to the Buffini Success Tour Tuesday and Wednesday, and one thing I really got out of that was, I think it was a quote by Bruce Lee, and he was saying, he doesn't fear the person that knows 10,000 kicks. He fears the person that practices one kick 10,000 times. And so
Wow.
I'm like,
That's so true.
Yeah, like that is 100% accurate. So I could be practicing all these different scripts and I'm not going to know them, but if I keep and be persistent on the one script, like what I am with circle prospecting, then I know I'm good at it. I'm confident with it, and it comes across that when I'm on the phone, because I'm not fumbling over my words and I'm not doing that. But like when I switch my dialect and go to like a different type of phone call, I do find myself fumbling over my words because I'm just not as comfortable, because I haven't practiced it nearly as much as I have with the circle prospecting. So
I think that's a good point. I think you maybe stick to 1 or 2 and just beat the hell out of that script, and you just know it so well. Yeah, Tom, kind of putting it in the form of a question, do you agree with that? Is that kind of how you took that approach before you had your 10 scripts or 6 scripts, or did you learn
No, and I think that's the beauty. Again, I'll go back to the beauty of our scripts is you'll find that there's so much commonalities between them that if you focus on that 1 or 2 scripts and really truly master them, then you can begin to kind of peel out and go to some of the others, but you'll find that the transition between the scripts becomes easier and easier.
Yeah, I agree. It's weird, and that's good. I think that was Kim that said that, right? I couldn't tell who was saying.
Yeah, it was.
I think that connects.
I was kind of going over with my group about their buyer presentation, and I said, when you're thinking about the script for your buyer presentation and you're in front of them, it's kind of like when you go to your doctor. Do you lead the doctor's appointment, or does the doctor lead the doctor's appointment? The doctor's asking the proper questions, and he's the professional. You need to look at yourself as that same way. So that's what those scripts are doing. It's making you more confident and more professional sounding. Rather than, if you went to a doctor and he's all stumbling over your words because he's about to do open heart surgery, you'd probably want a different doctor. But he knows exactly what he's doing. He sticks with what he's doing, and you're confident in his decision. So you don't even often question or get a second opinion because you're so confident in what he's done. So you have to go in with that same mentality.
Well, I think that's where I get a little passion behind it is we want commissions, we want a transaction, we want our listings. Of course we want that. But are you doing what it takes to practice and know the script so you are the professional? And then the money will come. So I think sometimes we think the money needs to happen first, and then we're gonna learn the scripts later. I find that as a challenge. I think that analogy of the doctor is a great example. That doctor makes a lot of money, And yet he just did a script on you. He's asking you your temperature and how your symptoms are, and that's a script. So, anybody else have any specific questions before we hop off? Anything you guys are struggling when it comes to scripts that you guys want to ask? I'll give you a couple seconds, but well, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Frank, for your time. I really appreciate you're dedicated to using scripts and sharing your knowledge on the topic. All right, guys. Have a great one. Thanks for you guys' time, and let's get some more listings and houses under contract before the end of the month, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye, guys.